Let me give you my parallel to New York City here to show you why change happens slowly sometimes. And Joe asked a question before, totally not a setup, by the way. Can't say that enough. You know, how bad does it have to get? And the answer is sometimes it has to get really bad. I don't want to use the cult word, but there are parallels here between all of the indoctrination that's happening to kids through kindergarten up through college into believing that the Democrat Party is this party for freedom and coexistence and tolerance, that it's hard to break people. What typically breaks people, sadly, is when something kicks them right in the nads, either crime, loss of job, or something else. I hate to say it. And has it gotten bad enough yet? The answer is no. It hasn't. It's getting there. The same question was asked in New York City when I was growing up there. New York City, ladies and gentlemen, was a hellhole. They were closing in on almost 2,000 homicides a year. Think about how bad the crime situation is in New York right now. They haven't yet crossed 400 homicides. They did last year, but they're not yet there for this year. And let's hope they don't, but it looks like they will. You had 5 times as many homicides. And you know what? We still lost the New York City mayor's race. Let me show you what I mean. Look at this New York Times headline from March of 1990. Killings in 1989 set a record in New York. A record. Folks, there were about 2,000 homicides. You may say 2,000 homicides, Dan, in 1989? That must have been really bad. People must have finally had enough, right, Joe? Nope. They didn't. Rudy Giuliani ran as a tough-on-crime federal prosecutor for mayor. Dan, he won. No, he lost. What do you mean? He was a mayor of New York. No, he lost his first run. I was there. Matter of fact, he lost 50-47 to David Dinkins. And everybody celebrated. Republicans, just like Democrats are celebrating. Now, look at you Republicans. You can't get your act together. You're so pathetic. We're going to do more Democrat stuff in New York City. And believe me, David Dinkins did a whole lot more Democrat stuff. He did a whole lot more of that. And then it got really bad. Look at this headline from 1994, New York Times. 1993 homicides, fewer, but pay attention to this next sentence, but more clustered in New York City. So what happened is things got better in wealthier neighborhoods in New York, like they always do for rich liberals, right? But the Bronx and Brooklyn, where a lot of poorer folks lived, murders were out of control. 1,960 just 4 years later in that mayor's race. And what happened in that mayor's race? Rudy Giuliani won, ladies and gentlemen, 51-48. Sometimes, sadly, Joe's question is an important one. Sometimes, sadly, change happens slowly. It's no excuse to give up. We had a little bit of change last night, not as much as we would have liked to see, but there's absolutely no reason to fret about what happened last night. It could have been better. It was not bad. It was decent. Sorry, there's a hurricane going on. Did you hear that, Guy? Something hit my house here. So if we get disconnected and the show is a little disjointed, it's because we had to jump back in. Yeah. All right, let me get to this. And I want to explain to you why, again, with the Giuliani parallel, I'm not done. How once we get power, like Giuliani did, and institute real conservatism, public safety, fiscal sanity in New York City, what happened after that to show you that this real change is possible. And you may be witnessing the middle of a macro cycle right now. So, folks, it happened slow in New York. 2,000 people were murdered, 5 times as many as today. They still lost, the Republicans. Nearly 2,000 more people were murdered over the 4 years of Democrats. Sadly, this is going to happen over the 2 years of Biden. As crime continues to creep up, inflation continues to reign out of control. And then what happened? A mayor won in New York City despite a 6-1, 8-1 Democrat advantage. Then what happened in the next mayoral election in 1997 in New York City? Giuliani gets into power, cleans up the city. Ladies and gentlemen, Giuliani won 57-40. He won by 17 points. I want you to remember this, the Herb Stein rule. Herb Stein, famous economist. What can't continue won't. What can't continue won't. You can't continue to print money and destroy your currency without a complete financial collapse. What are you, Dan, praying for a kind of financial collapse? Hell no, I'm not. I live here. I'm just telling you, we had a public safety collapse in New York City that led to the greatest 20-year renaissance New York City's ever seen. You may be seeing the beginnings of it last night. This has parallels to me of 1989 Giuliani, where we were almost there, but not as much. Where people like Joe said, gosh, we were almost there. How much worse does it have to get? Well, we're going to find out in the next 2 years. Because again, what can't continue won't. You'll either crash our economy or cause such a public safety disaster and debacle that you'll find yourself losing seats you never even thought were competitive. Don't forget that lesson, folks. Don't get too down on last night.